Today we're going to learn how to do a farmhouse sign. For this sign, I DIY'd from scratch. I used 1x2 pieces of wood and I used 1/4-inch plywood. Now, I felt like the 1/4-inch plywood was a little thin, but once the whole sign came together with the frame and the base, it seemed a little bit better. But you could use 1/2 inch if you want. I got the wood at Lowe's, so any local hardware store will work. You may want to plan ahead to see how many signs you can make, because I did have to get a decent sized piece of plywood, and you'll have materials for more than one sign. I also used the gel stains, the universal white, and extreme protection from the CrystaLac company. I highly recommend that you upgrade your materials for this project. While yes, you can use anything you can find at the hardware store, the CrystaLac products are just better quality, they're non-yellowing, and they're just overall going to give you a better project. So I highly recommend that you check them out. If you're not much of a DIY person, you don't want to cut your own wood, I did see that you could buy signs already made at Michael's, and there might be others at different craft stores as well. If you're new here, my name is Allison, and here on this channel, I give you a weekly tutorial to help you learn how to make a new craft. I give you step-by-step instructions and exactly what you need to buy so you can start making things on your own. If that sounds cool to you, consider subscribing down below so you don't miss any future videos. As always, if you like this video, shoot me a thumbs up and comment below if you have any questions at all about the process. Let's get started. So I cut the plywood into a 12x12 square, and then I cut my 1x2s to fit. So I did two that 12x12 size, but make sure you actually measure your square before you cut your 1x2s, and then measure from top to bottom to figure out exactly how long your other two pieces need to be. Sometimes when you cut your wood, they don't turn out exact, so you want to make sure that you measure again before you cut. You don't want to just assume it's 12x12. So I have my edges overlap like this. You can do fancy things and have them meet at a 45-degree angle or whatever you want, but I went with this because it is easier, but you can do whatever makes you happy. So you need to prep your wood with 220 grit sandpaper. You can do this by hand or you can use your electric sander. Either way, but you want to make sure that you give it a good sand so the surface is completely smooth, and then wipe each piece clean so you don't have any particles left on your surface. I'm using a damp paper towel to remove all of the particles. Once your surface is prepped, you can move into the staining phase. I am using the CrystaLac gel stains in Java. I highly recommend the water-based stain. They're very easy to apply, they dry quickly, and they're safe to use inside. And the cleanup just cleans up with soap and water. So I also recommend a foam brush. I didn't have one, but I recommend a foam brush for these. It's just a little bit easier to fit it into the container. You want to make sure that you're doing long strokes from top to bottom so you don't see any of your brush marks, and do all the sides of your 1x2s. Let this dry for a couple hours, and then if you want, you can do a second coat. I did do a second coat on mine, and then let that second coat dry completely. I painted my plywood in universal white. I'm using my universal white from my squeeze bottle, but it's honestly probably easier to use it from your container. Make sure that you stir it up really well before you paint. I ended up doing 2 coats of universal white, letting each coat dry for 4 hours. Once this was dry, I put my sign together. So I used a combination of glue, clamps, and staples. I have random clamps at my house, but these Craig ones that I will list down below work the best for a project like this. So I took wood glue and just glued every piece in place. Once you have each piece in place, you can clamp down your wood, it's not enough just to glue it and leave it there. They really need to be clamped down to create a secure border. Now, I only have 2 clamps, so if you don't have any clamps, you can use heavy items like these giant books that I ended up putting on the top of my frame, and just random heavy things that I could find. But I did have 2 clamps, so I did clamp the 2 bottom corners and left the books on the top and let this dry for 24 hours. Once it was dry, I added staples to the back. I do not think glue alone is enough, so I used 1/2-inch heavy-duty staples and my staple gun. And just around the back, I stapled through the plywood and into the 1x2s, and you just want to make sure that you're doing it on the edge so it goes through both pieces of wood. I don't have it on video, but once I got this stapled, I did paint the back of this in universal white. You can stain it or you can use universal white to match, whatever you want. I painted the entire thing and I sealed it with 3 coats of extreme protection. I coated the front, the back, and the sides before I added my vinyl. I added my vinyl once it was completely dry. I am using permanent vinyl. You can use a stencil or whatever makes you happy, but I just used Oracle 651. And I wanted to give you a quick tip for layering any vinyl you might have. So I have this red truck and green Christmas tree. And to make sure I had these exactly lined up, I used parchment paper to help me get it lined up. Parchment paper is a little transparent so you can see underneath it, and vinyl does not stick to it, so it helps to get your vinyl layered before you add it to your surface. Now, this is permanent vinyl, so you can just stick it right on your sign and call it a day. I decided to coat this portion with 3 coats of extreme protection just to give it a little bit extra, hopefully make it last a little bit longer. So I just did an additional 3 coats right just on the inside. Since I already coated the frame, I'm just coating where my vinyl is, and I did 3 coats 4 hours apart. For another fun home decor project that you can use CrystaLac for, click that video that I have pulled up on the screen and I will teach you how to make a wood round Lazy Susan.